Hey everybody, this is Robbie with Robbie's Reptiles. I get asked all the time, how do you pick a holdback? What do you take into consideration when choosing your holdbacks from each season? So I figured today we'd go over that a little bit too. So what I think might be the most exciting, at least for me and for 2024, is my Cappuccino that is 100% het Axanthic. So this one ended up becoming female, it looks like. And on top of that, I think that it has a red base color. Why is this not focusing at all? So this Cappuccino is 100% het Axanthic, and it looks like it's going to be female, and it looks like it quite possibly has a red base color. This is really exciting because it proves that my Cappuccino is het for red, and it proves that the visual Axanthic male that I own is also het for red. And I can confirm this because a lot of my other Axanthic pairings, I did the visual Axanthic to reds, and all of the babies have been red essentially, with only a handful of non-reds. If you guys don't know, I am 99.99% sure, along with other breeders in the hobby, that red is a recessive trait. So achieving a red base color is homozygous for this recessive gene. Whatever it may be, red seems to be recessive. What gets even more exciting is about what I can possibly pair this Cappuccino female to. Now, the perfect pairing, if you ask me, would be to pair her to a phantom visual Axanthic lily white. That gives me, I believe, a 25% chance to then next season hopefully make a visual Axanthic frappuccino. And then I believe it would be a 12.5%, maybe less chance to make a phantom variety of that visual Axanthic. Because this Cappuccino, while she is het Axanthic, she's also 100% het for phantom. And I'm really hoping that this one stays female. I still don't see any pores. She is fired down right now, so you can't see her colors very well. Granted, I only made one Cappuccino that is het Axanthic, but if there were more, then I would have had to take into consideration what kind of pattern they had, if they had a lot of pinstripe or not, what base color they were, and then see how that can work into stuff. And there's been some pairings that I do, all of the babies are holdbacks, and that's a great year for me. But it depends on the pairing. If I had a black-based Cappuccino that was het Axanthic, and then I also made a red-based Cappuccino that was het Axanthic, like I did, I would keep both of them, because now that's two different projects that I can work those same offspring into. One I can work into reds and hypos, and the other I can work into the more standard dark base color and high contrast pattern. That's going to do really well for a dark Axanthic project, but the red base could really do well in a hypo pale Axanthic type project, especially like making a pale visual Axanthic phantom frappuccino. That's what I'm trying to work towards. The dark stuff is really awesome and impressive, but I just think it's more interesting to try and go the opposite way. Not a lot of people are doing it as well. And that's another thing to take into consideration when just choosing your projects in general. What is everybody doing? Go the other direction. If you see a bunch of people, like we do, working on awesome drippy tricolors and that's all that they're doing, snowflakes, cool, but that market has a lot of other competition in it, and they've probably been doing it a lot longer than you have. So what's something that the market isn't focusing on, and focus on that? Because then you're going to make it popular by putting a lot of effort and making all those beautiful offspring. People are going to want that, the demand will rise, and you've already been working on it for years. Carve your own niche in this hobby. One of my absolute favorite productions from this year, from Chadette to Sigma Chad, just the pinnacle of a cream XXX. I'm hoping that this pattern gets more cream with age. Now that it has grown and developed a little bit more, you can see that it actually does have some pinstriping. With the raised scale on the dorsal right here is indicative to pinstriping, and it's still able to jump on the floor. And even with that pinstriping, it still has this incredible vertical pattern. I absolutely love this gecko. So far, it's looking female. I've been really hoping to make some males because I feel like I'm really lacking in the great male XXX department. So hopefully this one does end up getting some pores and dropping balls. On to our number one Thalia baby from this season. This is also looking to be girl. I hope it turns male though. I absolutely am just a sucker for dashed pinstripe, especially on these XXXs. And honestly, looking at it, there's only a couple of little parts that could pass for XXX, technically, but I think it's undeniable that this is just a really nice extreme harlequin with some awesome dashed pinning. And it looks just like the mother. Couldn't be happier with how this one is developing. Hopefully it does keep oranges a lot better than the mom. That is Thalia's weakness, is that she's never kept oranges very well, and she barely fires up these days. So fingers crossed that this one ends up becoming a male, but if it's a female, of course, I still can't complain. Do you guys have any name suggestions? Right now, she's just labeled as Thalia 2.0. You need to take a step back and look at the big picture. What are you trying to produce? Take, for example, a lot of my XXX projects. I want to make super soft scale XXXs with incredible head structure. So the things that I need to take into consideration, whether the fact they are soft scale, have decent head structure or, great head structure, and do they have what I qualify as XXX patterning? So luckily, I did end up walking away with 2 geckos just like that. Both of those different geckos from 2 separate pairings also had siblings that were very similar to them, but didn't have everything that it takes to really be what I want to hold back. One of the offspring that I made was from KK Slider to a yellow pattern XXX. On the first attempt, in the first generation, I was able to make some hopefully soft scale XXXs, even though it was from a pairing of a possible super soft scale pinstripe harlequin to a hypo XXX. Out of that, you would expect there to be a lot more partial pinstripe harlequins, but luckily we lucked out and actually got one XXX that had absolutely no pinstripe, which you'd think would be a definite keeper, but it actually ended up having a few dow spots. The sibling that I'm holding back, while it doesn't fire up very well, it does have what I consider to be perfect and ideal XXX patterning. It also looks to be soft scale, and it is hypo. I have a lot of hypo XXX projects, so I know that it can perfectly work into those later in life, whether it's male or female, and it might possibly be soft scale. Once it's a full-grown adult, I think I'll be able to identify it a lot better. But for now, that is worth holding back to me, because the sibling that could have been the perfect example ended up having Dalmatian spots.
How could this gecko have had Dalmatian spots, Robbie? You have breeders that don't have spots.
Well, KK Slider is from AC Reptiles, and I acquired him after he had already dropped his tail as a baby. So there's a slight possibility that during his development, he was supposed to develop 1 or 2 dots on his tail as an adult, but because the tail dropped when he was a baby, and he grew up all the way to adulthood and had no Dalmatian spots on his body, there is no way for me to identify whether he has the gene or not. So when it's a situation like that, you have to breed them, and then you can find out were there supposed to be dots on that gecko's tail or not. So this one here is the soft scale dashed pinstripe XXX I was talking about. This is, believe it or not, the most fired up I think I've ever seen this gecko. This is out of KK Slider and a hypo XXX. So the fact that this happened on the first generation, I am so unbelievably grateful for. And it also has some really neat fringing if you look on the neck right there. Pretty interesting. I like this one a lot. This is from Solomon Doors to that super soft female named Gwendolin that I got from AC Reptiles. This is a soft scale dashed pinstripe XXX, and I believe also maybe tangerine. Completely fired down, of course, because I did not take the time to fire them all up before this, but I will get some B-roll showing how fired up they get. I actually did sell the sibling to this one, but I vowed to only sell something like that to a YouTube member. So if you guys want access to stuff that I don't regularly offer to the public, becoming a member is the best way to acquire some of those. I love the orange patterning on this, and you can see it does have a little bit of that full coverage XXXing towards the back of the laterals. But then we can talk about something like Nikki and Carl Jr. They essentially made an array of different styles and types of geckos. Not only did they make some orange XXXs, which I am holding back because I am trying to work with more orange XXXs, but they also made a tricolor XXX, and they also made 2 orange patterned partial pinstripe harlequins. So the 2 partial pinstripes that they made are not going to be my holdbacks because that's not what I'm trying to work towards. What I'm looking for is intense vertical patterning with a lot of tiger influence and minimal pinstriping. Dashed is all right, but none would be ideal. And so when you have all of the offspring from a pairing, whatever your goal is, you simply need to look at what has the most attributes towards what you are trying to build to. This one right here is from Nikki and Carl Jr. And this one is pretty much a replica of Nikki. I mean, flat out, one of the best babies I think she's ever made for me, and so bright orange. And it has some awesome fringing on the head too, which is always welcome. I love any sort of little bit of contrast we can get out of the pattern. This has to be the perfect distribution of pattern when it comes to XXXs, because believe it or not, there often is a problem with working with these high pattern vertical projects that you sometimes have too much pattern, and not being able to see enough base color not being able to see enough of that contrast actually detracts from, in my opinion, the overall quality of the animal. I would say that this has the perfect combination of pattern, base color, fringing, pinstriping, portholing. This one really is just super eye-catching, and this is going to be a killer adult. Now this one is a sibling to the one that was just on screen. This one kind of leaned a lot more into tricolor territory rather than that orange XXX that I was going for. This one's probably better than the last one in terms of pattern and color distribution. I think this one really takes the cake. My personal preference though is I love the orange. I love that bright, almost red pattern. This one's still got a nice golden to it. But regardless of my personal preference, this one is going to be killer. It absolutely just has some of the best pattern, the best dashed pinning that I've seen. I wish that the color was that more orange and red. And really the only things that these are kind of missing is head structure, but that also could come in a little bit better with age. These ones are only about 5, 6, 10 grams, all the ones I've been showing. So they still have a long way to go. But yeah, just this one is probably one of the best overall from that pairing. So this one here is one of my holdbacks. Believe it or not, this is from a super soft scale tangerine to my phantom monochrome Amon. And out popped this really awesome guy. And I had to hold him back because he kind of has a little bit of this, really vertical patterning. Not as much as I would like, but from my experience, it is definitely something that can be worked into all of my XXX stuff. And he has a really nice black, true black base color when he's fully fired. And so I appropriately named this one Spooky Wagons because he's that Halloween kind of look. And if you can see this crazy dorsal separation on his back, the pattern is completely disrupted from that tigering and that nice dark base color with the orange pattern. This guy is awesome. One of my holdbacks. I don't know if I'll ever sell this guy in the future. Now, because his mother was a super soft, that means that this is officially a soft scale. And you can see he's only got a little bit of dashed pinning going on, but that mainly nice vertical pattern, orange pattern, and the black base color. In general, I try to only hold back 1, maybe 2 babies from each pairing. Any more than that, and it's just unnecessary. This is my full-time living, so I do need to take into consideration making income. So I have a pretty strict limit on 1 or 2 per pairing personally, but feel free to hold back as many as you want. I know that if I had a pairing, let's say that I did the visual Axanthic lily white male to my het Axanthic Cappuccino, and I made 5 visual Axanthic Frappuccinos, I'd probably sell 1, but I'd keep 4 because those are genetic powerhouses to hold on to. And the implementation that I have for those visual Axanthic Fraps down the road are endless, right? So there's a lot to take into consideration as to what should be a holdback. Get creative with it. Think outside of the box. If you hit the odds one year, maybe hold on to a little bit more than usual. Well, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you guys liked seeing how my holdbacks have been developing. There's plenty more, but none that I wanted to really give the total spotlight to. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube mumbo jumbo. Consider becoming a member down below to get access to exclusive Crested Gecko content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.